the whole goal of this introductory webinar is to give you all an idea of how complicated this issue can be and where to go from here. And in that vein of thought, I would like to invite both Dr. Bittu and Dr. Kavita to give like a few closing remarks each, because I think from the perspective of an educator and from the perspective of like a mental health professional, two people who are quite integral, just as Amrita ma'am just said that education is a key factor in like a trans individual's journey, and mental health, as we've seen, is also another very like important thing. So I think if you could start with Dr. Bittu and then move on to Dr. Kavita.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe I'll focus a little bit quickly on medical and biological curricula. I still remember, so I did my PhD at Harvard, and I still remember my conversation with the professor who taught me developmental biology. And, I was talking about some papers I was reading about intersex variations. And he said, what are intersex variations? It's a developmental biologist, right? Because this is 2 decades ago, or more. I'm dating myself, maybe a decade and a half ago. But but yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon to find doctors, biologists, and so on who are just simply unaware. And part of the reason is that, as I think it was Ishika who said that there's sort of this little paragraph on kind of deviations, right, in which everything trans, queer, intersex is buried in medical curricula. And the understanding that that emerges even from those texts is highly pathological, and so people don't even relate it to actually what might be the reality for a trans or an intersex person, on a daily level. For example, one of the things that these textbooks suggest is that there's some way to sort of figure out what intersex variation an intersex person has, and that you'll just kind of automatically know what gender they might identify with. In fact, a lot of medical texts assume that, and a lot of doctors, assign not just genders to intersex babies, binary genders, but also assign or recommend the performing of invasive surgeries. Sometimes this is not even informed by a sense of how somebody might identify. It's just sort of, it's easier to cut than to add. So just sort of, take intersex infants and just, remove external genitalia, which can be, extremely scarring and painful for life. And there is really no education in medical textbooks about how this practice should not be, recommended. And so that's an example of something that's missing in medical curricula and that needs to urgently be added in medical curricula. Then, again, when it comes to trans people, there's next to nothing, in terms of medical curricula. As I said, as Ishika correctly said, this is sort of just pointed out as some sort of deviation, briefly, but biologists as well are largely not in their biology curricula, and medical students are not in their medical curricula, gaining an understanding of how it is that biological sex, let alone gender identity and so on, are shaped in the body, right? And so there's very little sense of how, developmentally speaking, various genes may interact with each other, interact with the environment, and so on. In my particular case, it's also interesting because I know that when I have a sense of the ways in which medical intervention may have played a role in my own trans identity when it comes to prescribed treatments for pregnant women. And there's some initial research sort of looking at some of these interactions. It's still in its infancy, which is why I'm not talking about it in more detail. But I do think that the understanding in the medical I hesitate to use the word fraternity because it suggests a group of men, but we could also just call it what it is. But in the medical community, an understanding of the ways in which various medically standardly prescribed, sort of treatments or courses of action may impact somebody are not very well understood. In the specific case of someone being trans or queer or anything else, it's really vital for medical curricula themselves to suggest that, therefore, you can have somebody come to a hospital. I mean, there's no preparation that a doctor has for the fact that, say, someone like me, that a man can come to a hospital with gynecological problems, right? So every time I go to a gynecologist, it's excruciating being in the waiting room, because people are just saying you're in the wrong room, you're in the wrong department, and I just have to say, look, don't focus on yourselves. Don't worry about where I am correctly or incorrectly placed. A lot of the discourse, it's difficult to buy, stuff that one needs for one's gynecological needs. It's difficult to find trans-friendly gynecologists. It's difficult to find doctors in general who are trans-friendly. I'm, for example, one of the few actually the only trans person I know in the country who's also tried to get pregnant. And the confusion among doctors is just immense, right? It's, well, first of all, why would you want to have a child if you are a trans man? So just sort of I would say, like, even among a very large number of people, there's this very sort of a crude understanding that a trans man, would not want to, why would one want to carry a child, right? Why is that something that one might want to do? And I've always said, look, if I was born a cis man, I'd still want to do it, right? I just feel, that it's unfortunately an option that I don't have. So if it's an option that I do have, I'm quite happy to do this. And you can sort of see my locket, which is a seahorse. Right, since seahorse males, carry their young and give, life birth to them. So that, for example, was an interesting experience. It's sort of an entire experience where, I'm like the only guy in a room full of women, and over and over again, and it's assumed that I'm there for someone else. And so I would say that it's just important for there to be training across the board in hospitals. But also for people then in medical curricula to get this information about what it is that they should expect in hospitals when trans patients come in. And a lot of there's still a very strong conflation of biological sex and gender identity, and so people think that a trans person who comes into a hospital, I mean, even now, I think of the first in several government medical institutions, when we've gone to just get gender affirmation, like mental health certificates or GID certificates for trans persons, gender identity dysphoria certificates for trans persons, they've been told, first go to the gynec section and get yourself checked out, then wo report leke aana before you get a certificate of gender identity dysphoria, which has nothing to do with your body, right? And then often they're asked to strip when they go to those doctors. So these are the kinds of procedures which, I mean, I don't even know where that procedure comes from, right? Is it in a rule book? Is it just people, winging it? I've seen it happen in so many places that I'm starting to feel that there is a government hospital rule book that says if someone comes to you with this, send them to gynecology first or something. So there are various steps at which this needs to be remedied, but of course it has to begin with medical curricula. It has to begin with medical students being equipped to be good, empathetic doctors for trans persons. But if you've not had such a medical curriculum, I would say just ask trans people who come into you. I mean, they'll I mean, we're not thrilled about having to be everybody's trans educational experience, I think, as Dr. Ren said. But I think that when we go to the doctor, we much rather educate them on what we need than have impositional healthcare. So just ask.